Hi there, I'm back again, Linda Mechner with Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough. I'm here now with Dr. Laara Van Bryce. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'd love to start with just inviting you to share your story of how you came to do the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Linda. So I have been a chiropractor for 40 years. And, I've worked not only in chiropractic, but also in nutrition and functional medicine too. And I have done that because it's what it took me to heal my body, and obviously, I think a lot of practitioners end up doing the kind of things that have helped them heal too. So today I actually wanted to talk about brain fog. That's one of the more recent things that I've been working on myself. And I just noticed as I went through menopause that I just had more difficulty with memory and thinking and clarity. And also I noticed that different foods were impacting me. I know we're talking about, different food, how food impacts you and how we need to get beyond foods. But the most recent thing that I actually had experienced relative to food was I do like chocolate, and I will eat a little chocolate. And I went to Trader Joe's probably last year, and I was buying these tiny little, 1-by-1 little chocolate brownies that they sell, and they're really good. And I started eating a few of them, and then I started to notice that I was getting foggy brain, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I can't think. And what hijacked my brain? And as I thought about it, and then I noticed when I ate these brownies, my brain was totally being hijacked and I couldn't think. So that made me realize that there are chemicals in our food that are hijacking our brains. And so I started to do some detoxification to help get rid of, chemicals that I was experiencing some difficulties with. And I knew that it wasn't the chocolate or even the sugar per se, because I was able to eat other things, and I still occasionally I like chocolate brownies. So
was there an ingredient in there that you could identify that was the culprit?
I never figured out what the ingredient was, but I'm pretty sure there was a specific ingredient in there that must have been hijacking my brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I wish I could tell you what it was, but I'm not really sure.
Right. And so I know this is probably a silly question, but did you then stop eating those brownies, or did you say, well, on this day it's worth it, and on that day it's not worth it?
Oh no, when I realized what was going on, I never had my brain hijacked that much before. And so it was a no compromise for me at that point. I didn't have an issue with stopping them when I realized what was going on.
That's so interesting. I have at times had, I have a lot of food sensitivities. I mean, even to this day, that's one of the things that I really have to be careful of. But because it's been such a part of my life since I was a teenager, I've gotten really sensitive to the feelings of what it feels like to eat something that my body doesn't like. But about 10 years ago, I was having horrific brain fog issues. But it wasn't just brain fog, it was vertigo and ringing in the ears. I mean, all like this conglomeration of symptoms. And I actually wound up tracing it back to several different foods, probably the worst of which was onion.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like if I ate onion, I would be on my bed with room spins.
Did you have a sensitivity to garlic too? Because those can kind of, like
all the alums.
Sensitivity, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's so interesting because you'd think in in a package of brownies, you could read the ingredients and say, okay, it's not the chocolate, it's not the sugar, it's not the flour. And then by process of elimination, if nothing else, say, well, maybe it's the, crazy chemical that I can't even pronounce the name of.
Right. Yeah. And maybe it's not even on the label,
Right. Well, and that's the other thing, because sometimes you don't even know like where these ingredients come from. Like, on the, if there's wheat in the brownies and there's a particularly heavy dose of glyphosate in the, on that wheat crop, maybe that's what you're reacting to. It's like, it's so hard to tell, but it's so interesting. And so when you decided to, when you identified the brownies as the culprit and you stopped eating them, then what else did you do to support yourself in getting back your normal function?
Well, honestly, when I stopped eating them, I just didn't have the same issue. So, but I have done other things since then. So another thing that I did recently, because that was like a year or two ago, is I did a hormone panel on myself. So this was a saliva test, and you're testing for like cortisol like 4 different times during the day, and it tests for DHEA and melatonin and all your sex hormones, because you need all of those hormones working properly for your brain to be online. So I did a hormone test and ended up supplementing myself based on that with some DHEA and some pregnenolone. And that was very interesting, because when I did that, all of a sudden I noticed that my memory for names came back online, because it had been gone for years. And it was like, all of a sudden, wow, I'm starting to remember people's names when they introduce themselves.
Isn't that amazing?
So I really discovered that. And as I started reading about it more, and what I also discovered was that when women get pregnant, they also have issues too, like the estrogen, progesterone, or whatever. As estrogen increases, maybe your memory decreases. And I remember having an issue years ago. My daughter is 27 now, but when she was a very young baby, my husband introduced me to a friend of his named Jama. And I got introduced to Jama like 4 times before I ever remembered meeting her. It was so embarrassing. And she actually had to come in as a patient. So I saw her all the time. And then I remembered, and I thought, there's really something wrong with me.
Wow.
Brain fog has been a bigger issue for me than maybe other people. Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, definitely. For those of us who have had kids, mommy brain is a real thing.
Yeah, totally.
But sometimes it persists.
Yeah, I think that's the problem I was having, this persistent mommy brain. And then you go through menopause and it gets worse.
Right. Yeah. I'm in perimenopause right now. So I get, sometimes I feel like I cannot fight my way or think my way out of a paper bag. And other days I feel great. Like, yesterday was not an on day. And, I woke up I didn't feel like I could pull it together. And, for me, when I don't feel like I can pull it together, that's my signal to take extra good care of myself. And then today I woke up feeling great. And, sometimes it's hard to put your finger on exactly what shifts it in a 24-hour period, but
yeah, well,
the hormones are always in flux.
I have those issues too. Sleep can really impact your brain fog too. So in order to really help yourself out, you should get what we call pre-midnight sleep. So going to bed between 9 and 10 o'clock at night can be really important when you want to really fix your brain. And that particular time is going to rejuvenate you a lot more and give you growth hormones so that your body can heal itself. Whereas If you sleep longer in the morning, you just don't get the benefit.
Right, right.
So sleeping is really important. And I just notice that, some days I need more sleep than others, or, I think we all have biorhythms too. So not every day is going to be a great day, even if we do eat right and we're doing all the good things that we need to do. So we need to be, cognizant of that, and cut ourselves some slack sometimes too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, from an anthropological standpoint, the human body, the human brain was not designed to field all of the things that we have in our current modern environment. So much information coming out, so much responsibility and stress. And, I think a lot of people are really over-connected, overstimulated. And, so maybe off days is just our body's fail-safe to force us to get some downtime.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's true. And, even when you look at just the cycles, like we have summer, winter, spring, fall, we're, the whole earth is doing a cycle and doing different things. So I think our body probably does that on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis too. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think we all experience brain fog, to some degree, from one day, week, month to the next. But what are some of your top tips for helping people manage that brain fog?
Well, I think that, first off, that sleep and getting to bed at 9 or 10 at night, if you can, and getting that pre-midnight sleep. The other thing is managing your blood sugar. So for me, that also can be a big thing. You could tell because I like brownies, right? I don't eat a lot of sugar, but I do eat some. And so managing your blood sugar, and there are, certain foods, certain supplements and things like that you can do. And everybody's a little bit different. So you have to find out what is right for you. Like for some people, that's having protein at every meal. For other people, it's something different. So you have to, research for your own biochemical, genetic makeup to find out what's the right diet for you. But managing your blood sugar can become very important. Exercising, the metabolic resistance training, so you want your cardio, but you also want your weight resistant type training. All that makes a big difference on how your brain functions. And then there are different herbs that can be very helpful, and different vitamins, like just making sure you're getting really good B vitamins. And when I say that, like I have an MTHFR gene, so not all B complexes are going to be good for me. I need ones that are going to help me methylate, which is detox, right? So I have found that makes a big difference. And it also, there are certain foods that I'll react to. And so when I find that I'm reacting to a food, if I take my methylated B vitamin, I actually find that helps me get past that sensitivity to that food.
Interesting. Like what kind of food would?
Well, anything that has chemicals. Like what I notice is if I eat a processed food, or if I eat like fruit or something like that is either non-organic, or maybe it's GMO, or there's something not quite right about the chemistry of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this internal, I gotta move. It's like my nervous.
It's just a sensitivity kind of thing. Like you get jangled.
Well, I don't know if I would quite call it that. I notice it particularly when I'm trying to go to bed and sleep. And I'll be laying in bed and it's like, I just can't hold still. There's something just aggravating my nervous system. And it's not that I'm anxious about anything, or it's not emotional. It is very physical. And what I've discovered, I'll get up and I'll take my the B vitamin that I have, and it will calm my nervous system down so I don't have that internal shake. And I think what that is it's, you know, you have phase 1 and phase 2 of your liver detoxification, and maybe my phase 2 isn't quite as strong as my phase 1, and so I'm, you know, making these toxic substances and not able to clear them out and make them into water, which is how our liver detoxifies. Anyway, whatever it is, this product particularly helps me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted to mention something else to you too, because I actually used to have a lot more food sensitivities than I do now. Like, I find there's a lot of foods that I can eat that I didn't eat before. Like, I used to be wheat and gluten and dairy free, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so careful and sensitive anymore. And some of the things that I did was I took this stool test for the gut microbiome and discovered what bad bacteria, viruses, parasites, and all sorts of stuff that I had going on in there. And so I addressed those with bug killing herbals, and also repopulating my gut with, you know, good bacteria and flora. And between that and taking some supplements to heal leaky gut,
Yeah.
it really helped me not be so sensitive to the foods. So I can eat a lot more now.
So interesting. I mean, you know, certainly sensitivities, it boils down to that leaky gut. And for me, I had this pattern of no matter how much healing I did, I would wind up, you know, highly sensitive to way too many things, you know, to the point that I really had to do some deeper thinking and say, you know, not just, you know, what do I need to cut out, but what do I need to do so that I become less sensitive in the future. And one of the major things that I did was I had the copious amounts of amalgam removed from my mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had a mouth full of mercury. And I know that was part of why no matter what I did, I couldn't get a handle on it. Because when you have that much mercury in your mouth, you're getting poisoned all day, every day. Every time you bite something, you're getting a new release.
Yeah, or you drink a cup of coffee and you get, because it heats it up, so it, you know, goes into the vapors, right? So
yeah,
totally.
And you know, and it wasn't like overnight I was instantly better, but certainly that was a huge turning point for me in being able to get a handle on my health in a way that it didn't slip away, you know, even when I was trying my best.
Well, you know, I think even people react to, like, gluten, for instance, with their nervous system and their brain. And I was listening to one of my coaches just like last week or the week before, and she was talking about people who have a high forehead tend to be less tolerant of wheat and gluten. So isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Okay, and now I want to know their blood type.
I'll have to ask her.
Please.
Yeah. I have followed, you know, the eat right for your type, you know, philosophy at times too. I was also going to add that I do a micronutrient test too. Like, I was talking about how I'm MTHFR and the B vitamins and certain forms of that really help me, like folate. I did this micronutrient blood test, and it told me things that on a cellular level I was either deficient or low in. And so I feel like that also tends to measure your genetics without measuring your genetics.
So out of curiosity, was that the SpectraCell?
It was, yeah.
Okay, I love that test.
I like that test too, because like you said, we could be eating all the right foods, but we may not have the genetics to absorb certain things, and it can be, you know, screwing up our system or challenging us. So, so I definitely like that test too. And I do, I've done the MRT for food sensitivities too, because obviously, you know, food sensitivities has an impact also. So I'm totally in agreement with you.
Yeah. And just, as we're telling our stories, I'm so curious, how did you come to know that you had the MTHFR defect?
The DNA test,
The
23andMe. Yeah, so the 23andMe, you have to take that raw data and run it through a program. And
right.
so, yeah, that's how I did. I ran it through that program to discover that.
Yeah.
But then it was also verified by the micronutrient test, because when I did that, and then, I analyzed it, I realized, oh, well, that is what happens when you have an MTHFR,
Right. Yeah, I also did the 23andMe. I had a suspicion that I had the MTHFR defect because, my story is that no matter what I did everything right. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on with my health. Like, why was I the canary in the coal mine? And so I did the 23andMe, and I also did it for my 2 boys because why not?
Right, yeah.
And so it turns out that we actually I can't remember. Anyway, I have the MTHFR, not the double whammy, just the single. So it's not like I can't methylate at all. I just have a harder time.
Right.
And it really, the dietary changes that I'd made that support methylation really work for me, like eating lots of greens. It's really, really a good thing for me. Juicing, fabulous thing for me. And those are all things that naturally help with the methylation.
Yeah.
But it was so interesting. And one of the things that I've noticed, now that I know, and I can take the methylated folate when I need it, is that when I get under a lot of stress, I cannot metabolize the side effects of stress. Like, I feel like the stress just persists and persists and persists. Like, that feeling of anxiety persists long after the stimuli, the impetus for that anxiety is gone. So now I take the methylated folate and it cuts it right out.
Oh, that's perfect. And that's pretty much what happens with me when I have eaten something that has some chemicals in it. I feel this internal whatever. I don't know how to describe it. I just I got to move it. And it's that methylated folate that really turns that around fairly quickly, a lot faster than having it run through my body.
Right. And my older son, he has more of the methylation, like there's a whole conglomeration of genes. Like, there's the MTHFR, but then there's also some genes that are associated. And he has some defects that have to do with neurotransmitters and, like breaking down neurotransmitters. And my older son, he tends to be very susceptible to the effects of anxiety. So, he's at college now, but I got him the little bottle of methylated folate, and I tell him, whenever you feel under stress or, and.
You and I have the same oldest son.
Oh, is that right?
Totally. Yeah. My oldest son is definitely worse than I am. And
yeah. And the other thing that really wipes out folate is alcohol. And so, here's a college age kid. Yeah. And of course, alcohol flows at colleges. Yeah. And so I told him, I said, alcohol is going to wipe out your folate. You've got to make sure to support yourself if you're going to do that.
Right.
La, la, la.
A capsule with methylated folate, a little sip, encapsulated.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting, but this whole brain fog, methylation, food allergy and intolerance, it's so all connected. And I'm just so thrilled that you are here today sharing about your experience and your tips. I know we've covered, sleep. Pre-midnight sleep is one of the big tips.
Right.
Okay. I should have written them all down. Exercise.
Right. Yeah.
And what did you, gluten. I think that's actually a really good one. Like, for anybody with brain fog who hasn't eliminated gluten, that's top thing to take out. And it's
Right.
what it feels like, right?
Yeah, totally. It is, totally. I also, you know, have some recommendations on some different herbs that are
Yeah.
good and some different supplements, things like rhodiola,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's citicoline and N-acetyltyrosine, and there's, we talked about the B vitamins, and then antioxidants like vitamin A and vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned balancing your blood sugar.
Oh,
That's
right,
actually a really important one too. And then getting your hormones
right.
checked. And
Hormones.
I was going to say, whatever, I remember you were talking about a particular issue with your anxiety, although you said your methylated folate really fixed that up for you, but getting your hormones checked and seeing what happens with your cortisol or how you can support yourself with it.
Yeah.
There might be some supplements also
Yeah.
that.
I mean, for me, my adrenal issues are one of my core issues.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of adrenal support. I don't use rhodiola, but I do ashwagandha.
Yeah, that's good.
But, in perimenopause, I'm finding like, it feels like suddenly being on the surface of the moon. It just is completely unfamiliar and foreign. And some parts are smooth sailing and others are very rocky. and,
And it changes too. That's the other thing, is you can't, like
they're like
one day it's one thing, or 1 month it's this, and then that goes away, and then something else shows up, and
yeah.
it's a wild ride, huh?
Yeah, for me, it's been so reassuring just to know that that's what hormones do in perimenopause. I don't feel like I'm broken. I don't feel like I'm crazy. Some days, and this is what I told one of my coaches, is that I said, yeah, there's some days that my brain works and there's other days my brain doesn't work, and I'm not going to try and make my brain work on a day it doesn't work. I'm just going to cut myself some slack.
Be loving toward yourself, right?
Exactly. And then, on the days that I feel good, I'm going to, make hay while the sun's shining.
Totally.
Not beating myself up for the times when it just doesn't, like, it's just not connecting.
Yeah. One of the other things I also wanted to mention too was, we are talking about neurotransmitters,
Mm-hmm.
and the bacteria in our gut are responsible for making some of our neurotransmitters. So that's where, doing that stool test and getting your bacteria and your virus and everything tested, and then working with that can also improve your brain too. And I wanted to mention the neurotransmitter thing.
Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah. I think that's so true. And so when you work with your clients, do you do a stool sample for them? Yeah.
Yeah, I work with blood, looking at just a regular blood test, and then the micronutrient test, or the different hormones, the stool tests, and how I've done hair or urine for heavy metals. So,
Right. Wow, what a fabulous aspect to a practice. I think it's great that people can get that level of support so easily.
yeah.
I mean, it's not like you have to go to your, primary care doc and beg for the tests. I mean, you can just literally go out and buy them and become the master of your own fate, or at least, the captain of your own fate.
Well, I think really, it comes down to being willing to educate ourselves too,
Mm-hmm.
and be responsible. I mean, there's practitioners like you and I that are out there, are definitely, we want to help. We've been through it. That's why we're here. But certainly I find that, the patients that also do the best are the ones that are out there researching too.
Yeah.
And figuring out what's helpful. And then we become a partnership.
So Dr. Laara, I want to thank you so much for being with us here today. And I know you have a free gift for our listeners. Do you want to share a bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I have 10 ideas on how to get rid of your brain fog. And I will send you a link to my list. And after reading it, if it resonates with you and you want some help with it, I have a free 10-minute consultation also in addition to that, to help you on your road to healing. So check out my list of 10 things, and I really hope that it helps you out.
Yep,
So
and the links are right here underneath the video. So just click on those and you are going to have them at your fingertips. And yeah, thank you again, Laara, so much. And see you guys all later on the next session. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.